First time I've heard my voice this morning. Always a bit of a shock to the system. That first introduction of my own noise for the day. Give me a second, guys. Once again, I am better and not better at the very same time. Feels more like a cold now, you know? Before it felt like I was sick. I had some kind of viral infection. Now it just feels like a cold, annoying. You get through it. Just keep doing what you do. Hey, Sniper. Good morning, my friend. Let's see. Give me 1 second. As I said, I will read from A Course in Miracles. I'm going to bring it up in the online version. Online version is the same version. It's just online. Hey, Tandra. Hey, Easy. Appreciate you guys being here. Give me a second. So we'll continue going through the principles of miracles. Sniper saying hi to everyone. Oops. I think I left off at number 16 yesterday. But we'll start with 15 and we'll work our way through. Just another 5 or so. So appreciate you guys being here. As mentioned before, feeling better, but not better at the same time. It's just different. It's still got something going on, but it's turned into more of a cold, less of a viral infection, out of the chest, into the head. I guess that's an improvement, right? Feels more annoying than anything. Sniper says, got Van off at a mechanics first thing. Managed to get a courtesy car for the time period. Nice. Hope it's not expensive for you. So, before I start, let me clarify that when we say miracles in A Course in Miracles, a miracle is simply a shift of perception from illusion to reality. Can I see a different way? Can I choose peace instead of this? We're literally handing our thought process over to a greater reality than ours. We can call that greater reality the Tao, or Krishna consciousness, Buddha consciousness. We can call it Christ consciousness, the Holy Spirit. Doesn't matter. What we're saying is, man, I made a mess of things. I'm tired of making a mess of things. And I would like to see a miracle in the shift of my perception to a better way of seeing the world, a better way of viewing the world. Stepper says, me too. Hey, Robert. Robert, you have questions? So with that in mind, 15, each day should be devoted to miracles. Each day should be devoted to shifting our perception. The purpose of time is to enable you to learn how to use time constructively. It is thus a teaching device and a means to an end. Time will cease when it was no longer useful in facilitating learning. Let's see, Easy has a question. Let's hear it. Miracles are teaching devices for demonstrating it as it is as blessed to give as to receive. We talked about this yesterday. It is blessed to give as it is to receive. They simultaneously increase the strength of the giver and supply strength to the receiver. Miracles transcend the body. Their sudden shifts into invisibility, away from the bodily level. That is why they heal. A miracle is a service. It is the maximal service you can render to another. It is a way of loving your neighbor as yourself. You recognize your own and your neighbor's worth simultaneously. It's a quantum event. It can't be done in linear time, which is why we ask for that shift in perspective. That is why forgiveness is a quantum and not linear. Forgiveness traditionally says, I forgive you because this happened. The quantum level of forgiveness says, I forgive because in this moment, nothing has happened. Nothing has occurred. There's nothing to forgive. Forgiveness negates itself, brings us back to the present moment in which the past does not exist. The future does not exist. All we have is right now. Think of any past event that you've been unable to forgive. Let go of the thought that it exists right now. Let go of the thought that it actually happened, because it only has occurred in a memory, and we keep replaying that memory over and over and over again, which keeps us trapped in the realm of suffering. If you want to escape suffering, return to the present moment, meaning, where are your thoughts right now? Are you thinking of the past? Are you projecting the past into the future? I suffer because this happened. I will continue to suffer because this happened. Or I forgive because right now, nothing has happened. That's the clear and present choice that we have. Clear and present because it's based upon the present moment. I forgive because I am. Miracles make minds one in God. They depend on cooperation because the sonship is the sum of all that God created. Miracles therefore reflect the laws of eternity, not of time. Last one. Miracles reawaken the awareness that the spirit, not the body, is the altar of truth. This is recognition that leads to the healing power of the miracle. We are up to 20. We'll leave it at that. Let's see. William says, hi, Baldy. How have you been? Hey, William. I've been pretty good. Well, I've been sick. Easy says, I'm confused on the Buddhism perspective of God. Scroll says, no man has ever stepped in the same river twice. It is not the same river, and he's not the same man. Absolutely. Well, here's the thing to keep in mind. Buddhism is based upon the offering of Buddha. Buddha never talked about God. Buddha deferred all answers because he wasn't interested in God. Hey, Chi. Chi says, good morning. Boy, William is persistent, isn't he? So, there is no Buddhist perspective on God. There's no Buddha's perspective of God. Everything else is conjecture. It came after, later. The Buddha didn't concern himself about God because here's what he concerned himself. Suffering. He said, I teach suffering and how to alleviate suffering. That's it. One thing, suffering, how to alleviate ourselves from suffering. God didn't fit into the picture. Now afterwards, later, not of Buddha himself, but later teachings, there is the negation of the conceptual belief in God, because not so much God. You could say Buddha consciousness equates to God. But the Atman of Hinduism, yoga, which equates to self, and that Buddhism saw through the illusory nature of our belief in self. So Buddhism didn't negate God so much as the belief in a continuous self from lifetime to lifetime and lifetime. However, there is something, at least according to Tibetan Buddhism, that is reborn from moment to moment. Sepa says we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. Awesome. I like that. Let's see. Easy says, remember when you told us to look within to find God and not above? If Buddha would have talked about God, is that how he would have seen it as well? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how Buddha would have seen God. Now, one thing to remember, Buddha was a Hindu prince, or the Hinduism that existed then, which is different than the Hinduism that exists now. And he was also a yogi. But he didn't find ultimately what he needed through that. It was only when he sat down and did look within that he came with the Four Noble Truths. I sort of wrote about this morning because I'm often asked about the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles, metaphysics of yoga. Do I believe in the metaphysics, that it's an illusory world of our own perceptual creation and not the creation of God? And the answer is yes, and I don't care. I believe in it. I've done my own turning within, spending years and years and years meditating. But if it all of a sudden, if the rug was pulled out from beneath of me, it wouldn't matter. I don't care. Because I'm not invested in that. Here's what I'm invested in. In this moment, can I be at peace? In this moment, can I choose love? Nothing else matters to me. Zero. My objective, I want to be at peace. And I am at peace when I'm not in conflict with anyone else. I am at peace when I am not in conflict with myself and projecting that conflict out into the world. So all that matters with me is what I can do, what I can choose, what I can offer, what I can give. This is why, people come with me with different thought systems, different this, different that, different theories, different beliefs. It's interesting, it's entertaining, it doesn't matter. Can I choose peace? That's what matters. Am I in conflict with my thoughts? Am I in conflict with my beliefs? Am I in conflict with my others, with the world? If I am, can I choose peace? Can I let go? Can I let go? And can I let go? Am I clinging to concepts? Am I clinging to theories? That leads to suffering. Clinging to anything of impermanence leads to suffering. Any belief system eventually leads to suffering because it has to be let go of. This is why the Tao begins with the Tao that can be told is not the true Tao. This is why Buddhism says, when you meet the Buddha in the road, kill him. This is why A Course in Miracles we say God is, and then remain silent. Anything that follows that. Another quote from A Course in Miracles says, words are but symbols of symbols twice removed. Any description of reality is the map and not the territory. It's the menu and not the meal. Easy says, recently I've been liking the idea of religion without a God. I no longer believe in the faith, that faith really brings me anything. Keep exploring that. See where it leads you. I think eventually it all leads back, my thoughts, eventually it all leads back to God, but not a God of theory, not a God of belief, but a God of love, a theology of love. This is why I'm actually going to write tomorrow The yoga of A Course in Miracles. The introduction to A Course in Miracles says, only love is real. Nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. Only love is real. Nothing unreal exists. That's the peace of God. That is God. God is peace. The peace of God is love. Anything that is not love is of illusory nature. It's thought-based. It's not real. When you let go of the thought system, when you let go of the thought system of God, you experience God. A God that is beyond conceptual and can only be experienced. And when you try to describe that experience, you can't. It's impossible. I was saying that to my girlfriend today, but I couldn't really define love. It's impossible. It is impossible. Poets try, mystics try, and they always fail. Sampa says, I think the closer we get to enlightenment, the further away from the perspective of reality we are than when we first took on this belief system. Yeah, I agree. So that description of, give me a second, guys. Let me dig out my ever-present Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Remember, only love is real, nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. How does that correspond to yoga? If I wrote about the yoga of A Course in Miracles. The second point in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, yoga is experience, yoga, union, in that mind which has ceased to identify itself with its vacillating wave of perception. It's exactly what A Course in Miracles is saying in a different language. Yoga, union, which is love, is experienced by the mind that it no longer identifies with the thought system of the mind, with the perception. The entirety of A Course in Miracles says, look past perception to the reality of God. Perception is based upon our projection, and our projection is always based upon fear. Fear of guilt, felt that we are small, fear that we are separate. It's the 5 afflictions of the mind that's offered in yoga. So when we just cease identifying with that, this is one thing Scroll and I have talked about, not battling the ego, not making the ego an actual reality, simply seeing through it. The ego is a conceptual belief in who we are, but it's not who we are. We are the awareness that is ever present of the ego. The ego occurs, navigational system, a faulty one at that. We have a better one. A better one would be the heart center, or we could say the Holy Spirit, or we could say our Buddha consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, or Christ consciousness. Doesn't matter. Or the Tao. Or intuition. Exactly. So all we got to do is withdraw, making that hand gesture, sorry, withdraw our belief system of the world. Just withdraw. Sempa says, ego has not such skills. Absolutely. Ego is a blunt instrument. Easy says, love as a concept confuses me. I'm not sure what it actually is. I agree with it, but I can't pinpoint why. The reason you can't pinpoint it is because love's not conceptual at all. Love is reality. Ultimate acceptance. The ego cannot grasp ultimate acceptance because it divides. That's the purpose of the ego. I, me, mine, as George Harrison said. For absolute love, for reality, everything is accepted at once. Everything. There's no choice in love. However, in conceptual belief, conceptual identification with the ego, there is nothing but separation. There is nothing but distinctions. This is why the great Chan, Chan, which is the original Chinese Zen, has a wonderful, The Great Way, wonderful poem. The Great Way is not so difficult for one who doesn't make distinctions. Once a distinction is entered, the world is split into infinity. We can call that the Big Bang. Once a distinction, once pure spirit, unconditional love, thought, what if a distinction was made? Sniper says, love is a changing of the soul and the easiest form to express across a long distance. Nice. This is what, let's replace love with God for a second. This is why Course in Miracles says, God is, and then we remain silent. Because anything that we say is a description, and a description is not the reality. Love is, and then we don't say anything. Let's see, Easy says, why am I not able to love unconditionally? Or why do I find it so difficult? And how can I make it easier? You can't. It's impossible for you to do it. And by you, I mean ego. The ego will never love unconditionally. Ever. That's not the role of the ego. That's the mistake that we make. That's why you don't want to demonize the ego. That's why you don't want to fight the ego. Simply recognize the ego doesn't choose love. The ego has affection. The ego has romance. The ego has special needs, special relationships. But love, unconditional love, of which that is who you really are. That is what you really are. Unconditional love, unconditional awareness. Doesn't need to make any of that. So basically, you relax into being. You relax into being who you truly are. The entirety of the spiritual path can simply be summed up in the end of us simply going, oh, the great oh. Oh, wow. So it's been this all along. So it has been this. The entirety of my search, 40 years. Oh, wow. Simply this. Tanya says, I think it just happens. You can't force it. Exactly, because it's the ego that forces it. It's the ego that's always trying. It's the ego that's on the spiritual path, while your reality of absolute love simply smiles. There's easy on the path again. There's easy grasping at this, grasping at that, pushing this, pushing that, trying. And the absolute center of love, of which you are, is simply saying, it's already here. It's already happening. You already are. This is why Nisata Maharishi always said, just return to the I am. The I am. I am aware. I am unconditional love. What else do you need to know? I am. I am is all accepting, all allowing, unconditional. Sniper says, what if the Big Bang wasn't material? It was the first and only expression of love that is unconditional. I like that. That reminds me of the Samuel Taylor Coleridge poem, What if you fell asleep and in your sleep you dreamed, and what if in your dream you saw a strange and beautiful flower, And what if in your dream you picked that flower? And what if when you awoke, you had that flower in your hand? Ah, then what if? Hey, Lilith, how are you? Sniper says, easy, unconditional means that you have accepted yourself. Let's see. WH says, eat a hamburger, bro. What's a hamburger, bro? It's a hamburger made out of bro? Not going to do that. Let's see. Sniper says, greeting Lilith, beautiful name. I thought you might like that, squirrel. Tanya says, I find I give more love to others than I do myself. Something I need to work on, I guess. Hey, Tanya, one of my favorite quotes is from Ramana Maharshi when he was asked, you probably heard me say this 100 times, how do we treat others? How do we love others? And he replied with a smile and said, there are no others. There are no others. So all the love that you've been given to what seems like others is meant for you. All the love that you can give yourself is meant for what appears to be others. Secular. There's only giving, and in giving we receive. We like to make that into two separate things, but it's only one thing. Lilith says, I'm well. My father sends his infernal blessings. Well, thank you. Easy says, it's just hard to understand because of life is suffering, as Buddha says. How can it be love? Because he shows us how to escape that suffering. Suffering is self-created. Suffering is based upon the ego conception of our perceptions. Then he tells us how to escape that suffering. Life is suffering because we cling to that which is impermanent. We cling to concepts. We cling to perceptions. He tells us to turn within and keep looking and keep looking and keep looking. Cypher says, thanks to H, I will. See that? Sniper's taking one for the team. He knows that I'm not going to eat a hamburger, so he steps up and says, I'll do it for you. That's a true friend. A true friend is someone who will eat a hamburger for a vegan. Fox says, what time is it for you? It is just about 5:30. I'm going to go out and take a walk in just a minute. Let's see. Hey, Lala, how are you, my friend? Easy, because suffering is essential to life. Without suffering, there's no growth. Well, according to the Buddha, it's optional. Suffering is entirely optional. When you wake up that suffering is optional, there's no such thing as growth. What is there to grow? In the absence of an actual self, what is growing? Love doesn't grow, love just expands. It gives of itself. When we realize, when we awaken to the ultimate identity, the ultimate reality of love itself, the game's over. What's up, my peeps? Lala, my friend, how are you? Tanya says, hey, Lala. Sniper says, just sold the onions, please. Absolutely. All it says, what growing is to me is expansion. Lola says, what you said, Like we said, it expands. That is self is growth. So all the suffering stems from all psychological suffering. Extends to what we call, what in yoga is called the five kleshas, that we cling to that which we are attached to. All the things that we are attached to. Everything. Name something that you're attached to. If we're attached to it, it will eventually lead to suffering. That's one. Aversions. All the things that we don't want. We suffer because I don't want this. We suffer because someone called me a name. We suffer because I don't want this condition. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be stuck here. Our aversions. We suffer because we are afraid of death. We're afraid that we, this small little separate we, ego, is going to die. We suffer because we believe that we are an ego and that the ego will die. And we suffer because we believe in the illusory nature of the world. When we wake up, there is no suffering. However, there is still grief, there is still sorrow, there is still pain, but suffering is not involved in any of those things. Let's see. Easy says, sometimes I feel like I understand, and sometimes I feel so lost. Allow yourself to be lost. What's there? What's present when you're lost? If you keep returning back to I am lost. I am. Can that really be lost if I am is present? I am is lost. I am understands. I am doesn't understand. What's the one consistent thing? What's the one present? What's the one presents? Hey, Rachika, my friend. I do remember you. Lola says, it's like a piece of string to me. You start with something, then something based on your actions either depletes you or expands you. Tanya says, oh, that's a good way of looking at it, thinking about it. So that's very similar, Lala, to what's offered in the Course in Miracles. Do I choose love? Love is expansion. Or do I choose the opposite of love, which is contraction? Am I expanding in love, or am I contracting in fear? Course in Miracles says, only love is real. The opposite of love is fear, although that which is all-encompassing, that which is true, can in reality have no opposite. Only the illusion of an opposite. Hey, Goka. Rachika says, are you okay? Why, baby? I'm okay. Other says, if I keep cutting that string, it eventually will vanish to nothing, but really small pieces. If I keep taking another string and adding it, it expands. What would happen if you let the string go completely? What if there was no string and it was only love? And what if you just resided in that love? And sometimes you forgot. And then you remembered. Hey, Skits. Man, all my favorite people are showing up. Good morning, all. Hope you have a wonderful day. Much love to you all. Much love to you. Goka says, I am not Goka. I am Goka. Goku. I'm sorry. Goku. Gotcha. Hey, you got to forgive me pronouncing virtually every name. Lola says if there was no string, there'd be nothing. All of black, why would it be black? And what's the possibility of nothingness? What's the possibility of an abyss? And is that a concept? Actually let go of the string and see what's there. And then if you're residing in that nothingness, where did I originally come from? Where did this I am originally come from? If a nothingness is an all-allowing potentiality for things to exist, this is why in the Zen Sutra, the Buddhist Sutra of the Heart Sutra, form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. It doesn't say that form becomes emptiness. It doesn't say that emptiness reverts back to form. Is the operative word. Form is emptiness right now. Emptiness is form right now. The abyss doesn't disappear in the appearance of something. Something exists within the abyss right now. The abyss is that pure, unconditional acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. Hey, Ryan. Sempre says, greetings, everyone. Lola says that string would encompass all that is on it and in it. And yet, there's still a string. There is still that string that binds us to conceptual reality. In the absence of a string, would you still exist? And if you didn't exist, what is it that is experiencing the existence? Even experiencing the existence of non-existence. Let's see, she says, ran out of firewood, so an early morning. Do you have to chop or gather, or both? See everyone saying good morning, appreciate that. Simple says, Chi, leave the morn for the afterlife. Lola says, black is dark, which is the opposite of light, and nothingness is literally dark, but light is something, so it is not nothing. The abyss would be everything encompassing in it. So, can there be the opposite of light? We say darkness, but when you bring light into darkness, is there such a thing as darkness itself? Hey, Stuart. Sometimes someone would do the headless way, Douglas Harding's headless way experiment. When you literally point at your own nothingness, you're literally pointing. I'm not looking at my finger. I'm looking at the direction of the pointing. And what do I see? If I look in this direction, what do I see? Nothing. Pure nothingness. And yet, that nothingness serves as a capacity for everything to exist. Let's see. Lola says, I believe the darkness itself creates and expands further inside of it. She says, quite the existential, I always get that wrong, especially at 5:30. Question, it is. Stuart says, Sandra, sweetheart. Semper says, it's just the absence of light. Lollapalooza, for when light, the smallest light, is present, we see the darkness for what it is. Nice. Yep, how you feeling, Stuart? Again, this is why the very beginning of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra says yoga is achieved when we cease to believe in the vacillating mind. We simply see All these thoughts, all the concepts, all the beliefs are just that: motion, energy. But there is something that is aware of all that's happening. There's something that I am aware. Sir says, I'm getting better. The drink I made last night is working. Great. Awesome. So again, it goes back to the beginning of the Tao Te Ching. The Tao that can be told is not the true Tao. The description of reality is not reality. However, we always have that need to offer a description. But I love that pointer of just keep going back to I am. Remember, the pointer is not the thing. It's just a pointer. Ramana Maharshi likened it to having a thorn in the hand and using another thorn to remove it. Then you throw them both away. Or the Zen saying of the master points at the moon and the student looks at the finger and says, the moon looks like a finger. Don't confuse the finger, don't confuse the meal for the menu. Lola says, but squirrely light is something and needs to be created by something. So how can the dark be the absence of it? There's absolutely, if there is a possibility of being the creation of it. Does light need to be created by something? How do you know that? Stuart says, just needs my joints and muscles to try and get back to normal. Gotcha. Lola says, light is fire, and so need friction to create fire. But how do you know light is fire? We keep entering concepts, thoughts, belief systems. Are we talking about an external light that you are witnessing? Or the light of awareness? So it says, by the way, check out my members only post. Okay. All right, so we're laying sole responsibility on Skeeter now. I can deal with that. Lola said the fire brings you light and darkness. You can still see the fire at any time. How can darkness exist in the presence of light? Semper says, Lala, otherwise known as a star in the jar. Stuart says, well, I'm not laying the blame on Wendy or you, and he was the first to be unwell. Okay, we can trace it. We can trace it back to Skeeter. Skid says, Sola, each atom actually has its own light, even each individual atom that makes up your body. And what are atoms made out of? Particles? Particles themselves are just a vibration. So it says Bob has a stalker, by the way. Hey, Hugo. Hugo says, update, my people started to open up to me more due to me being calm and hard to get annoyed. That's awesome, Hugo. Sniper says, hitting the nail on the head. Sounds like just different vibrations of light. Skid says, create an open space box and have the light hit it, but it won't go in it. So you're talking about the double, I forget the actual term. But we're still talking concepts, Skits. Or I'm sorry, Lola. Why create an open empty box? Be the emptiness and see what happens. Keep returning to I am. Hugo says it's slow progress, but it's working. The other one, the only other one I saw was the newest members, Mary Goods, Glacier Shark. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Hey, and again, sending love, Stuart, to you and your family. Let's see, Lola says, why create an open empty box? So that eventually, over time, I will add something to that box every time. Something possibly could happen. But something is happening. Even in the absence of a box, something is already happening. You, Lola, is happening. Trending says, sir, Lola, good morning. Good morning, Trending. Everything is already happening. In the absence of a box, everything is already happening. The problem is we create a box and then we identify with the box. And we identify with everything we put in the box. And when the box is seen through, we've created suffering because we've been clinging to the conceptual object of a box. You create a box and you got to put stuff in it. And we spend an entire lifetime putting stuff in a box. And then all of a sudden we wake up and we go, oh, there was no box all along. There was only and always infinite light, unconditional love, simply awareness, being aware of itself. And again, it goes back to that great shrug of, oh, I didn't need a box after all. All I needed to do was love. All I ever needed to do was love. We need concepts as long as we need a concept. And then comes a point when we get to let them go. Who knows when that comes? That's awakening. Awakening doesn't mean it's the end of concepts. It means it's the end of our belief that concepts are the reality itself. Enlightenment, in light. All right. It's a great talk. I appreciate it, guys. I'm going to head out and take my walk. Stuart says Alice in Chains did a song, Man in a Box. Nice. Oh, it says, to me, it's a domino effect. One thing leads to another. That keeps us trapped in linear time, though, which doesn't truly exist. What if there was no one thing? Because it really isn't. This is what Nagarjuna defined as the middle way. There is no one thing. There's only infinite things, and infinite things of infinite things, and infinite things of infinite things of infinite things. There's no one thing. So one thing can never lead to another because there is no other. There's simply what's happening now. Lola says, how do you mean? I'm not sure. Stuart says, bye-bye, peeps. See you, Stuart. Tanya says, have a great walk. Thank you. Skits says, have a wonderful day, everyone. Spread the love always. Absolutely, Skits. Skits says, yes, but those infinite things can be possible. And as long as they are possible, they are probable. I'm not sure I would say they are probable. But even those infinite things, again, are based upon infinite things and based upon infinite things. Without the need to define anything, and I can say what is, and the only thing that will happen is we introduce another definition. Tony is just making dinner in the background. I appreciate you being there. Ola says, well, if I had infinite possibilities, I can create wine from water. Do you think I'd never be able to do it? But who's the I that you're talking about? The I that you're talking about is just one of those infinite things. Doesn't exist in and of itself. When you see through the illusion of an illusory self, there's no wine, there's no water. And there's no Lala to change one into the other. It all comes back to simply awareness being aware of itself. Trending says amen. Semper says skits, churches healed people with harmonic music, with the Semitic construction of the design of the building, the sounds of the church open, sounds from the church organ for our organs. Stuart says, I got a third eye in the middle of the forehead. And Skid says, score, that's why I haven't gotten sick for 2 years. The music I listen to heals me. Nice. Let's see, Lola says, the I is my body and myself. I define as my body, and as long as I'm aware of me and everything around me, I'm alive to me. When I can't, I'll be dead. Yet, what is it that's aware of the body? What is aware of the body can't be limited to the body itself. If you say the I is my body, if you lose a pinky, is that I less? Where does the I reside when you are in deep sleep? Not dreaming sleep, but deep sleep. Does the I disappear and does the body disappear? I am my body. And yet, what is that awareness that says I am? What is the awareness that is aware of the body? The brain is an instrument. The brain can't be aware of itself. What is aware of the brain? In the cessation of thought, in deep meditation, when thought doesn't even exist, when there's no movement of thought, I am reality, presence, is still present. And yet thoughts aren't. The brain can never be aware of itself. Is the heart aware of itself? Is my finger aware of itself? Hey, Bob. We just defined what the brain is, which is essentially just a computer system. Gotcha. Understood completely. And yet, what is aware of the brain? Can a computer system be aware of itself? We got some love from Rochika. All right. I'm late for my walk. Thanks for the conversation, guys. Last thing, if you keep letting go of every concept that comes into the system, find out what remains. And if you think you have an answer, let go of that. Find out what remains. And then relax. Nothing is the brain, which nothing is God to me. It comes out of thin air. And yet, there is no thin air. There's no air. If something can come from nothing, is there truly nothing? Again, we just keep entering concepts. Lila says, sorry for holding you off from your walk, brother. Not a problem. Love talking about this. Tanya says, bye. Everyone's rushing me off. I appreciate it. Bob says, yeah, if you see me in here, it's a sign that you leave for your walk. Absolutely. No air, but we have to breathe. But does awareness have to breathe? The brain is only aware that you perceive what you observe and what you subliminally take in. So what are we breathing? But who is it that's breathing? It's the body that's breathing. Who is aware of the breath? Who is aware of the breath itself? Who is aware of water? The fourth limb, the third limb of yoga, jnana yoga, the yoga of self-inquiry. Who am I? Keep asking, who am I? And don't settle on an answer. Just keep asking, who am I? And use the path of negation. As soon as I say, I am this, am I? Just keep looking. Who am I? Ask yourself continuously. Anytime you settle on an answer, examine it. Is it true? Can I absolutely know for certain that it's true? In the absence of the thought that it's true, who would I be? Who am I? But you keep saying who I am is defined by me and everything else who molded me. Is that true though? Or is that your belief? Let go of the belief. Who I am. Absolutely, it's an impossibility. Who I am existed before you were molded. When you were unmolded, when you weren't molded, when you were born, you entered the world aware, and yet you had no concepts, no conceptual belief system, and yet you were. I am. Sniper nails it. So keep going back. I am. And then we say, well, I am what I was taught. What if you weren't taught that? Would Lila still exist? What if your parents had a completely different base thought system? What if everyone who molded you thought differently? Would you be a completely different person? Or would you just have a completely different thought system? Would the awareness of which you are aware of be different? Keep going back to that awareness. Sniper says we can talk ideas because we can't verify. We can talk of ideas. Gotcha. All right, guys. Thanks again. I appreciate it. Ola says I can't show you an atom, but science has shown us what they look like and how small they are. And yet they've also shown that atoms don't exist. Atoms in and of themselves don't exist. They consist of particles. Particles exist as energy. Energy exists as a vibration. Vibration comes from where? Do the same thing with yourself. Keep that path of regression, the path of negation. Very true, but that's just like the body. We have tiny holes as pores. So the body doesn't exist in and of itself. The body consists of cells. Cells consist of molecules. Molecules consist of atoms. Atoms exist as particles, and on and on and on. Altogether, I am made. Or are you? How can you be made if none of that in and of itself exists? If an atom doesn't truly exist, how can you be made? There is the appearance of you, but an appearance isn't reality. It's just the reality of an appearance, not reality itself. Let go of the concepts. See what happens. Every time we argue for a concept, just keeps us bound to a concept, keeps us bound to conceptual awareness. Why did something have to start it? Why? That's just a thought. Something had to start it, but why? Why did something have to start it? Why did a loop have to occur? Eventually, the mind gets tired of reaching for all of these concepts. And when it relaxes, again, all of a sudden, there's this great big sigh. There's that, oh, wow, just this, just this. Well, this is why, because it can. But what can? Who can? You keep giving reasons. What if there's no reason? Keep looking past the solidity of things. Lilith says the ability is the can. The reason is irrelevant to itself. I don't fully understand that. Lilith, what for an instant you didn't have any of these thoughts? If you didn't have a single one of the thoughts, if you didn't have a thought of who I am, what would you be? Don't answer that. Sit down and start letting go of thoughts. Dismiss every concept as a concept. Does the yogic meditative practice of neti neti, neti means not this. As soon as you enter a concept, say not this. It can't be this because it's a concept. And keep letting it go, letting it go, letting it go. Find out where you are, find out who you are. And then every single theory is let go of as just a theory. Fun to think about, but it's just a thought. Other says, I can get up right now and walk, rock like you, but what if would be my reason? I have no reason, but my legs can say I can do it. Very fun to think about. So it's an impulse, but don't confuse yourself for an impulse. An impulse happens where? And in the absence of the impulse, what exists? Very fun to think about. Yep. Yes, can an impulse happen out of nowhere? Apparently so. Apparently so. Find out. Explore. If you let go of everything, all you have is nowhere. And what comes out of nowhere? Again, this is the Heart Sutra. Emptiness is form. Form is emptiness. So, if emptiness is existing as form right now, an impulse just appears. Just appears. Oh, it says it's like OCD, people who can't stop thinking of things they don't want to think about. I agree. But they're not, even people with OCD, they're not their thoughts, but they are deeply, deeply attached to those thoughts. They are attached to their identity as those thoughts. And suffering occurs. A great deal of suffering occurs for people who have OCD. But in the absence of those thoughts, would suffering still exist? All right. Hey, P Outdoors. How are you, my friend? We're shutting things down. I'm late. It's going to be a short walk for me. Um, but I appreciate the conversation. Thanks, guys. Take care.